Welcome back. Today we are on lesson 13 of A Course in Miracles. For those who have been following along, I hope you are enjoying it so far. And for those who are maybe new, randomly stumbled upon this, I hope you stick around. I hope you're able to take something from this beautiful, beautiful book of teachings that is going to help you in your mindset and in your connection to yourself and to your life. So let's dive in. So lesson 13 carries on from yesterday's lesson, which I should probably just stop saying that by now because we probably know that. Every day I'm like, this carries on from yesterday. And then I say it again the next time. So lesson 13 says, a meaningless world engenders fear. And this lesson is really about creating a really healthy separation, a detachment, and really practicing deep mindfulness around the perception that you're creating in your world and what you are projecting onto things. So we've discussed the whole meaningless world and the attachments and the labels that we give things. And now today's is realizing that when you are believing in a meaningless world, you're creating and living from a lot of fear. And unfortunately, if we look around us in this day and age, most people are living in a state of fear. They're in a state of stress, anxiety, lack, and a really big place of disconnect where they do not see their own inner power. They do not feel supported by a higher power. In this case, as the Course talks about, it is God. And we feel like there's this separation. And that separation is what makes life feel meaningless. It's what makes us question everything that's going on or feel stuck or create those kind of negative emotions to things that therefore continue to spiral and perpetuate more fear. So this is really, as it says in the lesson, represents a situation in which God and the ego challenge each other as to whose meaning is to be written in the empty space that meaninglessness provides. So our egos try to run in and create an understanding around everything that's happening. So with yesterday's example, I shared a huge tragedy that really hit me when I was younger, like it hit all of us as a world, as a population, but how I felt so stuck and really down because of it. And my personal ego began to create stories to try to create an understanding or a meaning of a situation, but it was coming from a really negative place. So I began to think of the world as really harsh, think of all of the negative things that happened, all the suffering, and my ego continued to focus on that kind of story. And unfortunately, then the more you focus on it, the more you're living in it. So I started to live in a lot more fear and continued to just only notice those negative things around me because I was just so focused on that. So my own ego created a lot of meaning, in this case, negative meaning, that then kept me stuck. And what's going to sound probably so confusing about this is that, as I said yesterday, in lesson 12, like we are in charge of the perception that we create. So nothing is actually good or bad. It's literally what we perceive it to be. So there could be a situation on the street today that you and I both see, and I could think that it's like neutral or not a big deal. You could think it's like a really big deal and it's really bad. Someone else could see it and be like, absolutely like, I don't know, super upset by it. I don't know what word I was going to say there, but we all have different perspectives and we're all creating different meanings. And the fascinating part about this is that our own personal meaning is coming from our personal experiences and the beliefs we've created from those experiences. So my upbringing, the things I saw, the different traumas I encountered, and the hardships, the struggles, the meaning I created around that is going to fully dictate the meaning and what I perceive in the world in front of me today. Just like your upbringing, your experiences throughout your life are totally reflecting in what you see in the world today as well. So we're constantly projecting our own experiences into the world, And our ego likes to create meaning from those things or create a story, because then it just fuels what it's already created or what it's already living in. So this is kind of the power of the mind, which I love talking about if you haven't noticed. So we'll just leave it there. So this says it's essential to learn to recognize the meaningless and accept it without fear. If you're fearful, it's certain that you will endow the world with attributes that it does not possess and crowd it with images that do not exist. And this is possibly going to be a very strange concept depending on where you're at in your own mindfulness journey or your own spiritual or religious journey, right? Is that whatever you are creating, if you're fearful, you are going to create and see and find more fear around you. So you're actually perpetuating that cycle, like I said before. And this is where the media and things keep us really stuck in a negative space, where we're then cycling through and creating more and more fear, and then watching more fear, feeling more fear, and then projecting more fear. So then you see something on the news that looks really negative and scary. Then when you go out to live your day-to-day life, you're now bringing that fear, bringing that energy and all of those beliefs with you to that situation. And now you're going to show up in a place of fear. You're going to project or create more fear around you. So we are like really, really powerful beings. And yet so many people are not aware of that. And they're continuing to be sucked in that fear place, continuing to believe those old stories, and then continuing to see and create more of that around them. And this is something I got stuck in for a long time, as do most of us, where I really was in this negative feedback loop where I was just constantly telling the same story, and then I'd go out, I'd see it around me in the world, and then it would reinforce that belief. I'd tell the belief more, and then I'd see it more. And so it's like, of course that felt like 110% truth to me, because that's what reality I was creating and what reality I was focused on. If I started to tell a more meaningful story, and if I started to shift into love instead of fear, which I did eventually, which is where I'm at now, if I'm living from love, I'm actually seeing and perceiving the world in a totally different way than if I'm living and what did I say? I don't know, if I'm living from fear. So we have that power. And this is where I think, again, I hope today's lesson, I hope that this is just helping you realize how powerful you are as a conscious creator, as a part of this planet. And whatever you're giving your power to is actually creating what you're going to perceive more of in the world. So you really have the ability to use this lesson to realize that you might possibly be creating a little bit more fear and a little bit more struggle in your life right now by continuing to see things as meaningless, or continuing to see the negative, or focusing on the things that you think are wrong compared to what you think it should be. And this allows you to realize that your perception is creating your reality, just as everyone else's perception is creating their reality, which is why there is actually no one right or wrong, or no one truth or false. You know, it's just like every single person has a different perspective, and the meaningful versus the meaningless is going to be different to every single one of them. So it's really about like getting on track and in alignment with yourself. And to me, that always means coming back to love, because the more people on this planet who are living from love, then the more beauty, the more kindness, the more compassion and empathy and all of these amazing things we're going to be vibrating on, like living from, and then projecting and creating around us. So it just spreads. It's that beautiful butterfly effect, and it creates so much impact around the world just from us choosing to bring ourselves into that place of love and into that more positive vibration, positive state of being and way of thinking. So if you found this video helpful, please make sure you give it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, turn on the bell notification so you're notified when I upload a new video. And let me just finish with the very last part of this lesson. So you're going to practice this, like spend a few minutes or a few breaths connecting to yourself, you know, eyes closed, and then you're going to repeat, I'm looking at a meaningless world. And as you look around you and you see the different things, you're going to keep saying, I'm looking at a meaningless world. See what comes up for you. You might have immediate interjections from that voice inside your head that goes, no, you're not. Or it might be like, yeah, like look at that thing and look at that thing. And it might be reaffirming. There's no right or wrong, again. So just pay attention to what comes up for you. So you're going to say, I'm looking at a meaningless world as you look about. And then when you finish, you're going to say, a meaningless world engenders fear because I think I'm in competition with God. And it literally says right under that you might find a lot of resistance to that last sentence, and that's okay. That conclusion might be like, ugh, might not feel good for you. That's okay. The purpose of this is just realizing that when you are creating, or when you're focused on the meaningless, or when you're living from that place of fear, you are basically, without meaning to, your ego is kind of competing with God in terms of your ego thinks it knows better of what should be or shouldn't be, and that means that God is wrong because you're fighting reality. And this is one of the biggest reasons for suffering when we look at the Eastern teachings and like Buddhism and different things where they're talking about like, if you're resisting reality, you're suffering. You're creating your suffering. Whereas if you can accept it and just be like, ooh, this is what's going on in my life right now, even though it's extremely uncomfortable and I don't like it, it is what it is. So how do I handle it? That immediately brings your power back and you're accepting. And then that also means you're not trying to fight and act like you know what's better, like you know what's right for you or right for the world, or that you're more powerful than God or the creator, whatever you believe in. So this is kind of coming into that alignment of seeing that if you are living from that place of fear and that meaningless world engenders fear, it's because you're in competition with God. And that's going to create more suffering because you're basically trying to fight the reality of what is and what has been created for you. So hope this makes sense. Definitely give it a try. Please feel free to also share in the comments. I always love hearing from you what you think of these lessons, what your takeaways are, as well as your own perspective as I'm teaching it and sharing it. I am going through this the first time myself, so I'm no expert by any means, but I just find it fascinating and I love sharing it with people and hopefully getting more people to jump on the bandwagon and give this book a read because it is really powerful and it has helped so much already for me. So I hope it is helping you as well, and I will see you on the next video.